Hello again. Nobody would deny that Britain, being traditionally a seafaring nation, had many seamen from different countries hanging around its ports and even staying for a few months or years at a time. This was the case in the 16th century right the way through to the 20th. Similarly, visitors of various ethnicities came and went in the larger cities. There were Indian law students like Gandhi in the Victorian era, and also Chinese families in the Limehouse district of London. The description to this video shows an Indian in London in 1851, who was featured in one of Henry Mayhew's books. Arabs and Bengalis, African sailors and Malaysian ones, Americans and Jews, Swedes and South Africans. Even the Zulu king, Cetshwayo, lived for a while in Kensington. None of this has ever been secret, and none of these ethnicities and nationalities has ever made a song and dance about it. It was part of the backdrop of life in Britain. The numbers were always tiny, and usually they were changing constantly as people went back to their own country or moved on elsewhere. I have never in my life known Indians or Bengalis going on about the fact that some people from their countries were in Britain during the 18th and 19th century. Nor have I heard Chinese people or Arabs doing it, making various claims. Why would they? It's no big deal. Neither I nor any viewer has ever seen a book called Indian and British: The Forgotten History of the Indian Presence in Britain. Nor have we seen a book called Chinese and British: The Forgotten Story of How Chinese People Lived in Britain During Queen Victoria's Reign. We have all, though, seen books of that kind about black people in Britain. There are dozens of them, both for adults and children. They all of them select a few people from Tudor England, a half dozen from the late 18th century and some in Victorian London, and then they use these minuscule numbers to prove that there had always been a black presence in this country. Other ethnicities could easily do this, and some of them have had far greater numbers in Britain at times than there were black people, but they wouldn't dream of doing anything so foolish. The question is, of course, why is it only people of African origin who make these claims? Why do we only see books about black British history and never about Indian British history and so on? Part of the explanation lies in the fact that this sort of thing, events like Black History Month, have been imported from the United States, and that we love to slavishly copy whatever foolishness comes out of America, whether it's pop music, fashion in clothing, or Black History Month. Black people will go on at length about the famous black trumpeter in Tudor London, but you won't hear anything about Indians or Arabs who were in the capital at the same time. Other countries simply don't feel the need to play that game. In short, we can view photographs of street scenes, and even moving pictures of the closing years of Queen Victoria's reign, and not see a single Indian or black person. Every single person we see is white. It was a homogeneous white nation at that time. There were very small and insignificant numbers of people from other parts of the world, especially in ports, where they came and went all the time. I suppose the question is this. Certainly, America's influence can be felt with the special consideration which we afford to black people, but I think that it's a little more complicated than that. The historical situation is plain and unambiguous, and I doubt that anybody would dispute what I've said. This then brings it to a matter of psychology. Why is it that every other nation and ethnicity simply accept their occasional presence in Britain in the way in which I have described, without making a big deal of it? What is it about people of African heritage which makes them appear so desperate to stake a claim in our history, to wish to pretend that our country is in some sense their country? What actually is going on with the black history nonsense? And almost as important, why does nobody ever call them out on this game?